All right, good evening. Welcome to the Cedar Valley Legislative Public Forum, co-sponsored by 23 organizations in the Cedar Falls Waterloo area. My name is Ray Voice. One of the hats that I wear is I sit on the Waterloo City Council. But the reason that I hope was asked to moderate our forum today is I am a former classroom teacher of 16 years and currently an ISCA UNISERV director working with the Waterloo region. That includes Hawkeye Community College faculty and the Central Rivers AEA staff as well. So I help them with their contract negotiations, labor issues, and all of that as well. The names of the co-sponsors are on the poster and also on the forum webpage. The forum was started in the 1970s to provide an opportunity for legislators to share information about issues and legislation and to hear from those they are elected to represent and to respond to constituent questions. Attendees are expected to be civil in their comments or questions to legislators. 13 legislators, 8 Republicans and 5 Democrats representing the Cedar Valley and surrounding areas are invited to each of these forums. Thank you to Mike Dargan of the League of Women Voters of BlackHawk-Bremer counties for facilitating the streaming services. Recording will be available on their websites. And then thank you to the legislators who are here today. We have Senator Eric Giddens, Representative Timmy Brown Powers, Representative Jerome Amos, Senator Bill Dotzler, and Representative Bob Kressig. So our format for tonight, we have 3 speakers that are going to come up and speak. They're local educators. Then we're going to try to wrangle in 5 minutes each for our 5 people up here. And then we will take any questions from the audience and any closing comments by our legislators. I was thinking at the time that it felt far off that we were having this education forum. However, because in the past, typically when we've had it, state supplemental aid and some other things have been done because the 30-day window has passed. So in my infinite wisdom, here we are, and it has seemed to dominate this session. So I'm very eager to hear from the folks up here and to hear some more of the questions and things that we have from the folks that we have here. Our first speaker, and I'm going to ask them to come up to this mic up here on my left, your right, and just introduce themselves, what organization they're with, and then any of their remarks. And the first we have this evening is going to be Amber McGivern. Celebrating the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl win.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Amber McGivern, and I'm the president of the WESP. One of the largest groups we represent are support staff. Support staff are the needed members of our schools who work with both teachers and students to ensure educational success. They provide the additional support needed daily for all students, including those who may be falling behind and those entitled to support as dictated by an IEP. In the past few years, I have helped push for higher wages for our employees through the negotiation process, through monthly discussions with our district. Just recently, we were able to get one of the largest increases for staff within Waterloo schools. While this increase has made a big difference in the ability to attract new staff, including those from other districts, it still has not provided our staff with a livable wage. Currently, a large portion of our staff find themselves working multiple jobs to make ends meet. This leads staff to have to choose between working and supporting students or being able to support themselves. If we truly want to attract and retain the best staff for the education of our students, we need to ensure that employees have a wage that can allow them to feel secure and financially stable. I witness daily the toll this job takes on all staff, both mentally and physically. It is not uncommon to walk by a staff member with tears in their eyes as they are trying to make it through a day. We are continually working shorthanded, taking on more responsibilities, and doing our best with less support. This has led to increased burnout and staff leaving the education field. What we have is not sustainable. If anyone would like to come and visit during a school day, please reach out to me and I would be more than happy to set up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amber. I've had the opportunity to be in this position almost 8 years, and Amber has been a steady influence on the support staff through two superintendents and many changes. So next up, we're going to welcome Tracy Richmond, please.
As mentioned, I'm Tracy Richmond. I'm a proud Waterloo Schools graduate. I attended Central High School until it closed in 1988. Graduated from East High just across the river here. Yeah, a proud veteran, third generation veteran as well. U.S. history teachers. I see myself as a patriot, someone who loves this country and loves this state. Currently, I am the Vice President and Treasurer of the Waterloo Education Association, representing about 1,000 teachers here in Waterloo. I want to talk to you a little bit today about our strides that we've had with our labor management team, with members of the district and members of the association getting together to solve problems, have difficult conversations. We've been able to listen to each other and build relationships.
Sir, you're gonna have to
Speak up.
speak up into the mic a little closer.
Should I start again?
No, you're good.
Use your outside voice. I'll use my teacher voice. How about that?
Yes,
How about you're mad at the legislature, boys?
use that one.
We've been able to build relationships and make it better for the students of Waterloo during these last few years. We've worked with them, they've worked with us, just like our legislators should be working together. I'm also a pro-education Republican educator. It might surprise you to know that about 1/3 of our members at the Iowa State Education Association are Republicans.
Oh, I know that.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, many of our Republican educators cannot support a lot of our Republican candidates right now, just because of the gutting of our public schools, the constant attacks on our public schools. They are not trying to revamp or optimize our schools and our AAs, but they're gutting them. You, our representatives should be responsible to the teachers and the students and the community members and the business leaders of Iowa, not outside interests. And I've spoken to a lot of you in the past, so a lot of that isn't directed at you, but some of your colleagues, right? In my career, I've seen a continual decline in relationships resulting in too little hope and prosperity for our citizens. Less money for schools has to do too much than ever before, or more than ever before. Wages not keeping up with inflation, teacher shortages in a profession once full of new promising young talent. What is the end game? I don't get it. When I see this, I don't know what the end game is. It seems like they're trying to kill public education. The schools will still be here. Our students will still be here. And this attack, if it's political, we will still be here. Here's my question. For those of you listening to our constituents or your constituents, thank you. For those of you supporting our communities, businesses, and schools, thank you. Really, thank you. All of you up here, thank you. For the rest of you, you don't work for the government. You don't work for outside interests. You don't even work for the special interest inside our state. So you work for us by representing us? Should we find someone else?
Thank you, Tracy. Next up, we have Brenna Huber.
You are.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Brenna Huber. I am a regional administrator with Central Rivers AEA. I serve Waterloo's public, private, and non-public schools. I'm here with my assistant regional administrator, Dana Harskin. So I just wanted to share a little bit about the services that we provide to the community of Waterloo. Again, that's not just the public school system, the 19 schools. We also serve all of the accredited non-publics and the private schools in the agency or in the community. We have serving your community 109 employees that serve your birth to 21 population in the area of special education. This includes people such as our school psychologists, school social workers, special education consultants, speech pathologists, OTs, PTs, SLPs, teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, audiologists, early childhood consultants, early access consultants, among many others. They work in the buildings on a daily basis to serve the community of Waterloo. In addition to that, those are our special education staff members. We also have a large handful of staff members who are serving the educational services and media and technology services for the students and teachers within the community. So our educational service consultants really work to improve the instructional outcomes for students. We provide professional development or work alongside teachers and coaches during PLCs or professional learning communities in school buildings. As an example of that, last week there was a PD day on Friday here in Waterloo, as well as for Cedar Valley Catholic System. And we provided probably 20 different professional learning opportunities during that day. As you might know, there is a bill out, an AEA bill at the legislation right now that is working towards shifting the services that we provide here at the agency. And many of those shifts will dismantle or gut a lot of the services that we are able to provide. So welcome any questions about the bill or the implications that those could have on our services.
I want to thank Amber, Tracy, and Brenna for being here today. It's hard to get up and speak in front of people. I understand it. It's taken me years to try to figure that out, but it's not, they're not typical folks that are at one of our forums that we've had on education. So I really, really appreciate that. One of the things I think for our legislators that are up here, and then I'll announce it as well to the public, but can you raise your hand if you're currently or have been in public education, if you worked in public education? Okay, so we have a half of our folks here that have. So Bill says 2/3, so we'll go with 2/3. Next up, we're going to have our legislators speak. You each get 5 minutes. Your time, Jerry's timing you, so you have to contend with him on if you get a little extra or not. And I think we'll start with you, Senator Gibbons.
Come in late, I get to go first.
Yep.
But it's great to be with you all. Thank you for being here again on a Friday evening. At the end of the day, I'm very grateful for your engagement in this process. I won't take too long because I'm really interested in hearing those questions right now. I think we'll try to get to that. I will say, first off, thank you for the 3 speakers. Frank, thank you for the work you do. I have close, strong connections to education myself. I was a teacher in the Cedar Falls School District. I was on school board in Cedar Falls before I was elected to the Senate. I served with Jeff Orvis, who's here in the front. We're glad we have him back on Cedar Falls School Board now. I've worked at the University of Northern Iowa. I'm no longer there, but close connection to our Regents universities in that regard as well. AEA's, the Area Education Agency Reform proposal has really dominated this session, not just the Education Committee, but it's dominated everything that we've had to deal with during the session. It's not something I have wanted to have to work on, but I've tried to be as responsive as I can. I don't think anybody up here requested that bill or either of the ones in either chamber, but we have done our best to be as responsive as we can to the outpouring of, concern that people across the state have given us about these bills. It started out as the governor's bill. Now we have 2 different bills, one that was proposed in the Senate, 2 in the House, or what do you mean?
Yeah, the governor's, yours.
Yeah, it started out as the education. Now we have 2 in legislature, one that is, generated from the Senate, one from the House. Those are not the same thing, but they both made it out of out of committee this past week, so we'll have to try and figure out where that goes now. They're both alive. There will be a continued conversation about AEAs, although we were told, a few weeks ago by folks in the House that they weren't going to do this, that the AEA issue was dead. They revived it and came up with their own bill that they passed out of committee this past week. So anyway, it's been all about AEAs. What we should have been working on related to public education was setting an SSA number so that school districts could plan their budgets and have some certainty for the coming school year. We should be doing good proactive things to support our school districts, to support our AEAs, our universities and so forth. There are a couple of smaller things that are happening incrementally, I'd say, aside from the AEA bill, but it's really been hard to pay attention closely to anything else but that. So I know there's going to be more questions later on. Happy to try to address those as best we can. But for now, I think that's the big item in terms of education here, and there's just been an incredible backlash to it across the state that's hard to keep up with. So thank you all again for being here.
All right, thanks, Senator Giddens. I do appreciate, though, as I learned last week, there's a bill for if you kill raccoons, we get $5 for that.
I was on that bill.
So I'm glad that we have that passed.
We made a joke out of that.
Not SSA, so yes. All right, Representative Roberts.
Has to be an Iowa raccoon, by the way, so it cannot be another state's raccoon that wandered to Iowa. So you know that I have no clue. So just to clarify the raccoon shit. So Amber, I have a question. What are our support staff at now for, in general, their pay now? What did we get that up to in Waterloo with that last increase?
Starting with 1698.
Yeah, that's
1698.
okay, yeah.
So can I just, because I know we have the Cedar Falls ESP president here as well, Kathy. So what does Cedar Falls start at?
Special ed is $13.80.
Oh.
General education is $13 and don't quote me, 30 some cents.
I could make more at Quick Trip then.
Yep.
About
Sorry, I just wanted to get that point across, even between our Cedar Valley.
cents now, last 2-year rates.
And that's even higher than some of our other communities surrounding. So sorry, Miss,
Nope.
don't take that time away from her.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. So the reason I asked, because Education Committee met Thursday as the rest of us were kind of rounding up, and Representative Steckman, who is our guru in education on the House side, she had texted me that they're looking at $15, which won't help Waterloo at all, might help Cedar Falls a bit, but still undercutting what you can make at Quick Trip. So that's why I was just kind of curious where we were sitting there. And we also, on the House side, out of committee, passed a 3% SSA on Thursday. That's still like, I don't know, probably 10% behind the 8 ball, but that's where that started. I don't know, did the Senate pass one? SSA?
No.
No. So that's not agreed on. That's just something that we did. And I think that occurred because Representative Steckman guilted them on the floor and reminded them that we're breaking the law as lawmakers, that we hadn't set that. So I think that was the only reason that they pulled that bill through. And I don't think it's agreed upon by anybody. But there it is. And then as far as the AEA bill, I said 3 to Eric because the governor has what she wants, the Senate has what they want, and the House has what they want, and nobody is supporting the AEAs and the teachers going forward. And the problem with one of there's lots of problems with the AEA bill, but one of the big things that got brought up is that they were upset that the administration didn't have a special ed endorsement. I want you all to keep in mind, though, that the Department of Education director has no education experience. She has a political science degree. So, and she would be in charge of the AEAs on the House bill going forward. So just so you know, I mean, absolutely zero experience, which I found kind of conscious. And the other thing coming out of the house last night when I was talking to Sharon was with the AA bill, is that, there's no agreement there, but Skylar Wheeler did say that he was open to more discussion. He did also bump it a year, so postponed it a year. So that might give us an opportunity if we get 92,577 voters back to the polls to vote, that we, but anyway, and he was open to discussion. So we'll see where that goes, but you need to be hesitant when we say that there's absolutely, last weekend we said there was absolutely nothing, one of our reps said nothing gonna happen to AA. This week, obviously it did. And so are we really open for discussion? We really don't know. And then all the education committee, when I was talking to them last night, they're pretty excited about Bring Your Gun to Work Day bill. So because that's our solution for gun violence in our schools. So anyway, just kind of wanted to give you kind of the update from education committee last night as they were getting out of the Capitol much later than some of us. They were sending me text messages saying, well, this is what went forward through funnel, but nothing really great through funnel. So thank you, Tracy, for your service, and thank you for being, open and honest, and for your dedication for our teachers. And we will continue to fight for our teachers. That is what we're doing down there, for sure, and our students. This to me feels a lot like when we privatized Medicaid. So we want to try to make money on the backs of persons with disabilities and our seniors and our most vulnerable. This feels that way again to me, that we think we're going to save money on the backs of our children with disabilities. Early access is getting cut in all of that. So this does not feel good. This doesn't feel right, and it feels a bit fishy. So, and I, if we've learned anything, we don't know until the very end. And I feel like this is the thing that will take us past April into late into session. And the fear that occurs is that when we get tension on all three sides and we can't agree, and then they go to a room with 6 people and they count it out and they say, this is what we're going to do, period. And that's what happens for Iowa. And Iowans have no say in that either. So, but what we do want to make sure you guys know is we got our letters, we've gotten our Valentines over this week from the AAs and teachers, and everyone we've spoken to is so supportive. And I think the key to all of this, and I said that last weekend, but we need to continue that campaign. So this campaign isn't over until it's over. So what I can't afford for anybody to do is to get tired and just give up. Like, that's not an option. So it's not an option for us. And I can't afford for any of you guys to give up either. So we got to keep up the emails, keep up the editorials, keep up the personal written notes, all of those things, keep up coming down and talking to us, because all of that is vital going forward if we are going to stop some of this stuff. Because we do know bipartisanly, we do have support to not do this. So we just need to strengthen their forces as well, and give them the strength so they can hold on and do the right thing going forward. So thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. All right, Representative Amos.
Wow, Terry, you said a mouthful. For me, I am not on the education committee, but I do communicate, like Representative Brown Powers, talking to a lot of the education committee members. And, the committees that I'm on appropriations, labor workforce, local government, public safety. A lot going on with the education side of things. I talked with one of the members, and it was 9 o'clock at night one night before they finally got done with their debating. And, a lot of what's going on in my mind is politics, because realistically, we know who's in control down there. We know who's doing all of these things that we don't feel should be happening. And like Timmy said, it's across the aisle. But Timmy said strength. but it's courage also. These individuals need to develop courage and stand up to the head of their caucus, who is a governor, and say, no, Governor, our constituents don't want this. Forget about the special interests and the things that they want, because it's not about the people of Iowa. You know, I talked about the committees that I'm on. We're not just working on education. There are many things that are going on in the subcommittees that Representative Powers and Representative Kressick have put me on, because they are ranking members of those committees. So I get assigned to subcommittees. And in those subcommittees, there's a lot of politics going on. There's stories that I'm not going to talk about right now, because it's just a matter of, I'll save them for a later date, because it's really egregious, some of the things that are going on down there from a standpoint of being in power and not considering what the individuals who we represent want. It's just not happening. And I see it. I research it. I see what's going on. You have the ability as citizens out here to look at all of the different bills. And one of the things that I do is when a bill comes up, on the left-hand side of the website, there's this little tab called Lobbyists. And if you click on that tab, it will tell you who's for, who's against certain bills. And so many times I see that the citizens in this state are against something. I mean, many people. And then you look, and there are 3 or 4 entities that might have representation in this state, but they are national organizations, and that's who they're listening to. Shouldn't be happening. I represent the people of Iowa. I represent the people in the Northern District part of Waterloo. And I'm telling you, it is just terrible what I'm seeing happen from a standpoint of what we as legislators should be doing, which is representing you. So for me, the education side of things, the AEA thing, like Representative Brown Powers said, right now, we have the Senate and the House on the Republican side, 2 different versions of what they want to do. And for me, they're butting heads. And I hope they continue to butt heads till it goes away. You know, I'm not going to take a lot of time, because this is out of my wheelhouse. But I do know that we are working on other things also in the background. A lot of talk, no action on their side from a standpoint of listening to us Democrats. Because when you look up here, who do you see? You see Democrats up here talking to you, representing you. Why the other side isn't here, you'd have to ask them that, why they're not here. So having said that,
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Senator Dotzler.
Okay, thank you. Well, I sat over here so I couldn't see Jerry Hagman's clock. But I can see it. Hey. Okay, well, I'm going to start with a statement. I'm going to end with the same statement. When is enough enough? Okay? Well, I'm not on the education committee, but I fought for educators night before last. The business and labor committee started out the labor committee. Now it's the business and labor committee. Now it's the workforce committee. And that's the committee that the collective bargaining agreement went through in 2017 and got destroyed. Well, they're not happy that they created the damage that they thought they were. And Senator Dickey, who hates organized labor, teacher unions, came up with a great new idea. And our meeting was scheduled for 1 o'clock, and we walked out at 1 minute to midnight on them. It was supposed to be a short meeting. And we were in debate for 2 hours straight. And there was 4 Democratic senators there. I was one of them, and I think I talked more than my 25%. Well, I take that back. I did talk more than my 25%. But I'm going to explain this bill to you. And it really, when we had the 3 speakers, they talked a lot about wages and not being able to hire people. Well, I got bad news for you. So this bill goes into the part about elections. So in 2017, they created a new system that required all public labor unions in the state of Iowa to recertify. And they thought by doing that the members would be upset and they wouldn't go vote, and they could get rid of the unions. And they also stacked the deck in the process. So every election you have ever heard about, unless you're a union member in the state of Iowa that works for a public sector, knows that if the majority of people vote for you, you win. But not the way they set it up in 2017. So what they do is the company, and I'll say public sector bargaining, call them the company is required to send a list to the LRB board and let them know that how many people are eligible to vote. And then they hold the election. And the union might win with 51% of the vote. But they might not win because they count the people who don't vote. Like 93,000 Democrats never voted in the last election in Iowa. They count them as no's. So now the minority and the people that might be happy about their union who don't get up and go, you can lose your labor union. So what they decided to do is they said that, well, we've got some of these public sector employers are colluding with the unions and they're not supplying a list. So, but it's not up to the union to get the list. The law says the state has to give the list, or your county or whatever union, what the employer is. So how did they remedy that? So if they didn't send the list, then it goes to the PER board, and the PER board says, we didn't get a list, we decertify your union automatically. And then the union has 5 days to get that straightened out. In other words, they got to get a list from the company. The company don't give them a list, their recourse is to go to the courts. Now they got to go to the courts to prove that that wasn't their fault, that they didn't have an election, and spend your union money to win. And they said there, you know how plugged up the courts are. At the bottom of that, they said, well, the courts have to expedite the process. Well, they already have a bunch of different cases that are already plugged up and moving ahead of the standard cases. So your union could expire after that. I have never seen a bill like that in the history of my 28 years being there. It is strictly evil. It's basically saying, if you were walking down the street and a guy came up to you, put a gun to your head and said, give me all your money, and you had to do it, and it was all on film and everybody knew who it was, you would have to go to court to prove that it wasn't your fault you got robbed because you gave him your money. So they've got this planned out. He said, well, it'll only be one chance in a million that they would ever do that. My buns. I want to tell you, that is a bunch of BS, bad stuff, really. And I'm used to swearing, but, try to calm it down a little bit, working in a factory. So, okay, so what happens if your union is decertified? Negotiations for wages are bad enough. It says right in the code, lesser of these two things. One is you never can get any more than 3%. What was inflation like the last few years? In fact, we haven't got below 3% inflation yet in our country. Or they take the consumer inflationary rate over the last few months and add that up. So if in 1 year, it's, right at 3%, that will take the previous years to ensure that it's less. So our friends in education can never catch up. Allowable growth at 3% is approximately about 10.5% less. Right now, Senator Cornbach, who's professor at Iowa State, figured out since they took over and how much they cheated you, it would take over 13, close to 14% allowable growth just to get you back to even. So guess what? When we talk about salaries, we talk about hiring, there's no way in hell you're ever going to catch up. I just had my 2 new tires put on my car, and the guy that owns the shop here in town, just down the street, told me he couldn't hire anybody to change oil, and he was offering $20 an hour to change oil. You don't even have to graduate through grade school to understand how to change oil. And you spent, as educators, a great deal of your life and money to be able to do that. So I'm on 20 seconds. You moved over.
You're giving, 2 of them only use 3 minutes, you're giving their extra minutes.
Oh, okay. That's 20 seconds of my extra minute.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to tell you, before I end this with the same statement, the reason this is going on is, one, an uneducated electorate can be fooled by ads on election time. Our friends on the majority party, you heard about how many were invited. They have stopped listening, but they also don't want to hear it. And you should have heard the excuses. And one thing that we tried to do with this bill as amendments, we had a whole bunch of amendments. One, I tried to get rid of the no votes count as non-voters counted as no. And number 2, I want to tell you this. We wanted to move educators into public safety because you can bargain for more. And they said, well, educators aren't in public safety. And I said, to mean to tell you that you are telling them that they got to arm your teachers so they can stand in front of your children and protect their lives at the risk of their own? They're not considered keeping the public children safe? Well, I used a little louder voice in that room.
You'd be sent to the principal.
So anyway, there's one more thing, and that's why we've got trouble with the AEAs.
Okay.
They're taking money from education all the way down the line. They're not helping in mental health. They're not doing any of that stuff so they can save up a big pot of money, because when all these tax cuts hit, we're going to be in trouble. Right now, things are going good. And Senator Giddens, I asked him, how much money did the federal government give us since COVID hit? And I thought, well, it'd be 8, 9, 10 billion. It was over 33 billion, wasn't it? 33 billion. But they can't afford to take care of you. Here's the statement. When is enough? When is enough enough? And the people out there, I think everybody in this room knows it. The ones looking in that camera, and I know there are people filming what we say, because if we say anything wrong, they're going to use it against Eric Gittens in a film. When is it? When are you going to stand up and fight for what's right? Thank you.
Representative Preston.
Sorry, Bob.
Oh, my God. I didn't think I'd ever get to say anything, but.
According to my agenda, you have
And I'll
3 minutes.
try to be a little more calmer. But I can raise my voice. Yeah, anyway. So, just a little information about education. I know Kathy's here. My wife was a para in Cedar Falls for 23 years. And I got to tell you, you know, the biggest frustration with this whole process for me is people in elected office in Des Moines are deciding what goes on in a classroom, and they have never been in the classroom. Never. I've toured multiple classrooms in Cedar Falls, and I've gone to Waterloo also. You know, the difficulties that teachers have, the abilities, the skills that they have to develop, and how they provide those services make a huge difference in the child's life. I mean, bottom line. So I remember my wife coming home and telling me stories about this happened and that happened. And I thought, my God, you know, but that's kind of the story. So I got to just briefly talk about the AEAs. We had a forum out at the Central Rivers AEA, which really is a nice facility to have a discussion or a forum. And I bet we had well over 200 people there. And it went on for 2 hours, and we had a lot of discussions. But you know, the frustration that I have with this whole process is here the governor comes in, drafts this, and by the way, the head of the Department of Ed in Iowa is a former worker for Betsy DeVos. Okay, so Betsy DeVos, her attempt was to privatize all schools. And, you know, to me, it was just frustrating to see and hear that, you know, we need to have people that are willing to listen. And my big frustration with the AEAs is this was all drafted. All this language was drafted without discussions with the AEAs on what they see they could do to make improvements to the system. And nothing. So the governor comes in, drafts a bill. It shows up on our desk. We weren't informed about it. And I don't even think the House Republicans were informed on it. I do agree that there are representatives that I've talked to in the House that aren't overly excited about supporting this. And so, as Bill said, you know, just continue to reach out to them and discuss you know, what the harm. And we had a tour recently at the Central Rivers AEA. And I got to tell you, folks, it's unbelievable to see what they do for students in there. It's just amazing how these children get off the bus. There's somebody there to take them into the classroom. They have activities to do. They know it's sad. The other one I want to talk on is school funding. I visited with my superintendent, Andy Pattee, and he was telling me that the 30-day time frame for doing supplemental state aid and getting that information to the schools is how they can create the formulas that they can use for spending. So here they are sitting there waiting for this. I got to tell you, in the House chamber, we have not run one bill on the floor, not one. And we're going into our 7th week. In my years down there, I've never experienced that. We typically address some critical issues and do that. So it was frustrating. Teacher salaries. I serve on the College of Ed Advisory Committee at UNI. And, you know, UNI has been known statewide and all over as being a great school for becoming a teacher. Well, they're facing challenges with attracting more students to become teachers. And so, you know, down the road, and they had a bill in the House that would allow someone to be a teacher without being qualified in that process. Think of that. Can you believe that? I just sat there and looked at that. And here's one. I'm ranking member of public safety, and we have the bill to arm teachers. How many in this room want to arm teachers in a classroom? No, nobody. And, you know, it's just ridiculous how they're approaching this. My sense is now, some of our schools already have a system to see who's coming into the school. The doors are locked. But then there's others that, you know, haven't really addressed this. We should, you know, give some financial resources. By the way, the governor's got $1.8 billion in reserves to help improve school safety. Their idea is just give them a gun and that's going to make a difference. I talked to a teacher that said, you know, if we had a gun in the classroom and there was an individual and we shot at that person, who's to say that that shot wouldn't go into a child that's in that school? It's just unbelievable. And then they're still going after, okay, I'll stop. I won't go past it.
Oh, you had 20 seconds. You could finish your thought.
Public money is still being put in for private schools. And so get ready, folks. It's not over with. And we're just not listening to Iowa. You know what? We're focused, the legislature, the majority, they're focused on politics. I'm focused on the people of Iowa. And that's what we should get back to again. So thank you.
He didn't speak. I'll give him 20 seconds. We'll give him 20 seconds.
I just wanted to point out something. Senator Dossler was talking about the way that they're trying to decertify unions and doesn't make any sense. Everyone out here, little homework for you. You know, we Democrats, we have a platform that we develop. The Republican Party has a platform that they develop. Go to the Republican Party website and under commerce, they say that their goal is to eliminate public unions. That's all it says. So think about that as far as what they're doing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So now is the time for questions from audience. And I know it might feel uncomfortable, but I am going to ask that you come up to the mic that's up here if you want to start making your way up. I appreciate some of the comments that our legislators have made. Just touch on a couple. One, as far as SSA, I'm hearing I bargain 18 education contracts. Our superintendents and HR directors in this area are asking for that to happen because they want to get negotiations started and done. They want people to feel safe. They want contracts to be out. March 15th is the earliest that we can. And every day that passes, we're not ready to bargain because we don't know what the state is going to do with that. And I think Senator Dotzler, thank you for your votes and your passion on the recertification election. As far as the teachers, we have only lost five or six locals, and that's small rural locals that we didn't have a lot of members there. I can tell you that I don't have any local that has 100% membership. I think we have one total in Iowa, and that's in Olin, but they have 13 teachers there, you know, so, but I can tell you in the election that we have had in Waterloo that has over 920 some employees, the three elections we had, we get over 80 to 90% of those folks voting. While they may not be members, they do know the value of public education and public sector unions. That's amazing. So I thank those that while they don't belong, they do know that we fight the good fight all the time.
I'm Jeff Orvis. I'm a teacher at Wake Shell Rock. Eric already mentioned I'm on the Cedar Falls School Board. I'm also on the board of directors for Iowa State Education Association. So Ray, I have about a dozen different questions on a dozen different roles.
Well, you can ask one and then you can just keep circling.
Sort of shotgun approach. Just a couple of quick comments. Just a quick one about, AEA. A lot of this has been focused on special education, but I know as a computer tech teacher, I greatly depend on AEAs and helping me keep up to date and helping all of our region get together and talk about some of these issues and some of these things that we need to be aware of. For instance, artificial intelligence is a huge issue right now in education. So thank you for that. I also thank you, Bill, for talking about this recertification idea. You didn't mention that, among other things too, the union has to pay the cost for each of those votes, and it's not a simple process to go through either, and it's not cheap. I believe I heard Senator Burbach say that 1.8 billion is about the equivalent of what it would take to catch teachers up to where they were before some of these bills started passing. So I thought I'd mention that too. I'll start from the top here, I guess. One of the bills, and forgive me if some of these did not make it through the phone, I was trying to keep up. As a school board member, we're right now looking at the issue of how to dispose of the old high school building. And there's a bill right now about right of first refusal for other education entities. Could you comment on that? Do you know where that is? And personally, as a school board member, and I don't speak for the board, but as a person, I want to make sure that we're able to do what's best for the community and not necessarily for a private school.
Do you have the bill number?
I do not. Off the top
That's
of my
very
head.
helpful for us.
Okay, I'll ask maybe Ray when he has a minute to check that out, but I didn't jot that one down.
I'm not sure. Okay.
The last I looked, I thought it passed out of committee this morning, yesterday.
It did?
I'm not sure. That's like I said, I was looking at the position. Can I hit a second question if you're not sure about that one?
Well, just for the record, I'm familiar with the bill, like remember it being discussed and all that. I'm not sure if it's a live phone on that.
Senate File 2368.
I'm gonna look it up. You could go ahead and come back.
So I guess the next, sorry, Eric. Next, one more quick question. You mentioned about the take your guns to school day. One of the issues as a school board member we're also concerned about is the cost of liability insurance.
Sure.
That would incur.
We did mention that. We had discussions on that. It's kind of like they get a bill that they want to get through to the floor, so everybody in their committee votes for it. But we have discussion on that in committee.
It's
And they just do really help.
File 2543.
One of the things around that insurance issue is, I've tried to get the insurance companies to say, what would it cost? And they're silent. And I want to tell you, people who are against these ideas do not any longer say they're really against it, because they say they're monitoring, because they don't want repercussions on other issues that are important to them. We've got senators doing unethical things and literally threatening people, said, if you don't get off of being against this bill, I'm going to kill every other bill you're working on. And they've said that. And when I go and I hear that from a lobbyist, and I said, well, why don't you turn them into the ethics? He said, well, and that was actually she said, well, think about who runs the ethics committee. And it isn't going to go anywhere, because I didn't tape it and I can't prove it.
Fox starting the hen house, is that?
Yeah, it's worse than that.
Did you happen to see if that bill was still alive?
Yeah, yes, it is still up, and sorry to report, yeah, I made it through education in the Senate, and I looked my notes back up again to refresh my memory. We had a super long agenda on Wednesday in the Education Committee. We had concerns about that bill, even like as it was written, it wouldn't just apply to an entire facility, but it could even just apply to classrooms. So if you had one or two unused classrooms in a public school, and there was a charter school in the area that wants to use those classrooms, then they would have the right to do that without the school district being able to do anything to stop them. So it's kind of strange the way it was written and just on principle generally. Our side was opposed to the bill. So, yeah.
Senator Giddens, while you still have the mic, we've heard a lot of the word funnel. Can you, just for some folks who might not understand what the funnel is, would you be able to like give us a quick, like, understanding of what the funnel is?
Yeah, we probably should have done that earlier. I should have done that in my intro comments, but so we just finished the 6th week of the legislative session and Friday today technically, but really yesterday because we didn't meet today, is the first funnel deadline. So that deadline is the deadline by which a bill has to make it out of committee in its originating chamber in order for it to stay alive in the form that it was drafted originally. And I say it that way because there are legislative maneuvers to keep ideas alive past the funnel. There's a variety of ways that can be gotten around. But that's the idea, is that you can't just go on and on forever considering, hundreds and hundreds of different bills. The session needs to come to a close at some point, and this is a way to kind of winnow down the number of bills that we're working on. So if it hasn't made it out of committee in its originating chamber by the first funnel date, then it's technically supposed to be dead for the session. 4 weeks later, we have the second funnel date. That's the date by which a bill has to have made it all the way out of its originating chamber, gone over to the other chamber. So from the Senate to the House or from the House to the Senate. And then it has to get out of committee in the other chamber in order for it to still be alive for the remainder of the session. And I'll note that appropriations bills, so budget bills, anything that has an appropriation in it, and ways and means bills, which are the tax policy bills, those are not subject to the funnel dates because those we do in the second half of the session traditionally. So those can turn into kind of vehicles for ideas that didn't make it through the funnel. Like those ideas can turn into amendments that get tacked on to these funnel proof bills. That's one of the kind of maneuvers to get around the funnel dates.
All right. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Senator Giddens.
Just one additional comment to that. And I know former Representative Teford and Senator Harper would know this person. Representative Millage used to be the chair of the Appropriations Committee, a Republican, and he used to scream, "No public policy in appropriations bills."
Or ways of being.
And well, same thing. So what they do is we even had it last session. They put whole bills in there. So nothing's ever dead. That's why, Bob was talking about keep fighting. Everybody up here has been around for a while. Timmy, we know, we were told it was the AEA bill was dead in the House. They weren't going to take it up, and guess what? Here it comes. So, yeah.
Get ready.
Get ready is right. Yeah.
Ray, keep that legislative bill page open.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Eric from Waterloo. So I just wanted to second what the AEA speakers were talking about earlier in the session.
all the time.
So I just wanted to second what Brenda and her deputy AEA 267 were talking about earlier. I went to Catholic schools now. I serve on the school board. And in our school board meetings, we've been talking about since January about AEAs. Specifically, like the union services that we get from them and the general services, and also like to keep our paras in place because we do have students with disabilities that receive services from the paraeducators. We'd like to continue to pay them. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just say,
Yeah.
thanks, Eric, and that's a really good point, that this isn't, with this issue, it's not public schools versus private schools in any way. Private schools, private school students get services from the AEAs as well. early on, when the governor released her bill, we started getting emails from private schools who were very opposed to the bill and aren't sure where they're going to get these services if they can't get them from the AEAs. So I appreciate your service on the Cedar Valley Catholic Schools School Board and for speaking up on this topic. Thank you.
My name is Maureen Hanson, and I've never worked for public schools, but I was on the Hudson School Board for 22 years, president for the last 7, and I'm now on the Cedar Rapids, Central Rivers APA board. I get nervous about this. But I know we're supposed to ask questions, and I know this is preaching to the choir, but I have a couple of questions that I just really would appreciate answers to. One of them is, it's just not clear to me, Senator Dossler, maybe you answered this, but it's not clear to me what pressure is put on people that causes them to vote against their conscience. I mean, and how do we help them? My understanding is Senator Sandy Salmon voted no on the committee, right? And that takes a lot of courage, and I'm just so grateful that she listened. And how do we help other senators and representatives have that courage? What do we need to do?
Well, first of all, it was a vote no in committee, and there's pressure on them. And if you think back about the voucher bill, 2 years ago, there were enough Republican House members that voted against it. And the governor found people to run against them, and they lost their role in the legislature, and the people that she supported and got involved in these races voted her way, and that's how we got it ended. So, and in fairness, on the bill that I talked about the collective bargaining, Senator Charlie McClintock, who used to be a state trooper and he was also a negotiator for the union, voted with us on all those bills, amendments that we had to the bill. So there are a few, and there's a lot of pressure on them. You saw what happened in Congress. The same people voted against the impeachment of the Homeland Security person, and all of a sudden they have another vote, and those people flip, and they get in the back room, and there's a lot of pressure on them to flip their votes. And it's a lot of things like, you're ruining our chances to get elected in the next election. You're not a team player. We're going to find somebody to run against you. And I hear all this. I know one thing, in our caucus, we were always said that you vote your district and you're never going to get the hell beat out of you for how you vote. And you count the votes in committee, and as the majority leader is, and they have the choice of bringing a bill up or not, and they are not to bring them up unless they got the votes. So it's behind the scenes, there's a lot of bad stuff going on, that BS factor. So, it's the way it is. I don't think it's ever probably going to change. And I know when I talk to people, I was the head of the Pioneer Lawmakers Association, and people that were there, and Jane and I know Pat Harper, all have stories about how when they had to get the 51st vote for gambling, and they had to pass a major bill, and they really worked people over to get it. And so it's kind of in politics, but when you got so many, that's usually when it's just a couple, 3. But if you got everybody in that caucus thinking in a negative way, I can't tell you how many times there was a guy in the meeting, I won't mention the senator's name, they passed that collective bargaining deal. He came up to me and shook my hand and smiled afterwards. I'm going like, good job, Bill, but where's your courage? I guess he loves his job better than his own personal ethics.
Representative Amos.
You mentioned Sandy Salmon as far as voting no for that bill, the AA bill. Well, several of us up here toured River Hills, and we saw those students coming into class from all over the different counties. I don't think our governor once has toured any of those facilities, because for me, seeing what was going on, seeing all these students, seeing the help that they were receiving from a standpoint of all of the different types of equipment, the computers and everything that they learned how to use to communicate. Those were things that touched my heart. And I think that's part of her seeing that and understanding the importance of is what made her say no to the bill. But like I say, my understanding is the governor never has toured any place. She relied on an outside agency from outside Iowa to give her the information. So for me, I think that's why that was that no vote.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Can I ask another question? Yeah, do you think there's any chance that, we could get? I don't know about the government, but people just admit this bill is a mistake and it needs to go away and it needs to stay away for good, because we can't go through this every day. No chance.
I don't see any opportunity. How many of us had the governor talk to her lately? I haven't had that in quite a while. And what we get, sometimes we find about a bill that's coming through the legislature in the newspaper. I'm not, literally, that's what happens. I've seen it down there.
I think the frustrating thing is that we had maybe a glimmer of hope a week ago that maybe the House was gonna try to stop it. I think the only glimmer we have now is that the House will maybe add some things to make it, to polish their turd. But it's still not gonna be good. But I think the only chance that we have is that if families and Iowans keep up the pressure. And that's why I said earlier, I can't afford for y'all to get tired. You have to keep up the pressure, because there are Republicans, friends of ours that don't want this. And we have to just kind of keep pushing that so that they don't give in. Although, because of what happened this week, it does make me nervous that this will be that bill that takes us into late spring, early summer, that, ends up just being an argument. It is a dog, she's a dog on a bone with this. This is, and we have seen historically when she gets like that, she doesn't back down. And so we need Iowans to really come up and and I'll tell you, the folks that coming down and visiting in person is really helpful, and talking to folks, and kind of getting their ear literally instead of it's easy to delete an email, right? I mean, that's easy. And so, but it's harder when I'm looking at you to tell you that, I'm not gonna support that and tell you why I would be that way. But it's not looking as promising as it was since, Representative Wheeler is moving forward with something at this juncture.
And the other piece too is November 5th. That's a really important date. That's, I mean, not to get tired, but November 5th. Like, you have to get out and you have to vote for the people who aren't going to continue to do these things. And we talk about it every 2 years, but when is enough enough? When is enough enough? And when will people, like, you can live morally, but you have to vote your job sometimes. I've said that to educators a lot. And that's going to be the crux of it. Is there's a lot of folks, Tracy mentioned, a third of our membership it's a third. D are undecided. You got to realize, like, these folks up here support public education, public educators. And so live how you want, but you got to vote. Like, if you want a job, because sorry, Jeff, I know you've got 7 more questions, but I sat with some AEA employees tonight, and they wanted to know what's going to happen. They want to know what's going to happen next year they're all in, like, just really upset about stuff, and I can't give them good answers, so.
I gotta, just a second, Bob. You asked an important question. And so here's what I think has the most power. If you get people who actually live in the senators and the representatives district, and you put their name, put your name on it and call them out by going down there, or an email is good, but one of the things what legislators do is they'll just block you out because they go down the list, say that, well, he's from, or she's from way out somewhere, another part of the state. They really, especially if you're from their town, that's the important thing. I was out there this last week, and there was a group, and I forget the group that was there, and I said, really, you need to talk to the majority party. And she said, well, he pulled out of her pocket, here's a stack of Republican people I wanted to talk to that had their names on, and they set it back out and said they weren't gonna come out and talk to them. But if you're from their town, and that's where the AAs really got to work across the regions to make sure that they got people that they're neighbors, because that makes a big difference. And the Representative Wolf, who I heard he was one that voted against it and sat at the AEA and said he had a neighbor that had a child and they were good friends. That's the kind of thing that's going to make a difference.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Maureen, I just wanted to point out to everybody here, you and I were both at a forum in Rhinebeck, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Sure.
And that was fantastic. Like, I don't know if anybody has connections to small towns, but, forums like we have here in Cedar Falls, Waterloo metro area, or down in Iowa City or Cedar Rapids or Des Moines or whatever, that's one thing. But a forum in Rhinebeck that I went over to, it's not a part of my district, but I went over there, see what was going on. I happened to be the only legislator that went. The senator that represents that district and the House member that represents that district or that town didn't show up. But I thought that on a per capita basis, the number of people that, came to that forum, that I thought it was incredible. So, and they got their attention, they knew that we had that thing, that it was there. So, if anybody, through the AEA network, the AEA is a big region with a lot of rural areas. There's ways to kind of continue to do those sorts of things, I'd say, since this bill is not going to die. I mean, it's going to be with us through the session, kind of just keep the drumbeat going. I think that's a really effective thing too. So thank you for that.
All right, back again, Jeff Orbis again. I'm going to throw out a couple of them here. One is and I don't know if this one made it through, the pastor as a mental health counselor. I did not. Good. Okay, so I'll pass that one, but I would like to shout out to AAs and their support parish schools during that crisis, and they were instrumental in helping recover from that. The other one is, the child development bill. I get a little bit suspicious when outside interests especially try to come in and prescribe a curriculum. There's another bill, I'm not sure if it made it out of committee concerning a technology curriculum. Would you like to speak to either the child development or the technology curriculum bills?
For the child development, are you talking about the reading, the science?
I'm talking about the video that they would have watch.
The information on pregnancy, it's House File 2031. I don't have the Senate file number on it.
I can. House File what?
2031.
Senate
The
files
bill is
2150s.
endorse a particular video, and from what I'm hearing from health professionals, it was quite inaccurate.
2031 didn't go out of.
Did not go through, thank you.
Looks like the Senate file died as well.
Okay.
It did.
Along with saying that, I mentioned this technology curriculum one, this one I just happened to run into Melissa Peterson, and she mentioned it to me, so I don't even know what Bill and Ross are saying, she started maybe, I don't know, but similar.
Jeff, Bill,
The technology, I'm on the technology committee. They had a bill that would make a technology class mandatory to graduate. And I felt that educators got enough on their plate right now and students that it's still elective, but they want to make it mandatory and you have to have a credit hour in order to graduate from high school. You had to have that. And it's important. I mean, everybody understands it, but we got a big enough mess going on right now to make more things mandatory. So it passed out of committee. I was one that voted against. In fact, all the Democrats voted against it. There was an amendment to improve it, I think, and we supported that, but it's still it's alive. And just one thing, we got notice today that we're going to start running bills in the Senate every day, and then they'll run them through their rapid fire. And it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, full speed, and Thursday, they'll probably have Ways and Means and Appropriations meetings. So keep your eyes open. The other thing is the public, if you know a number, you can go to the legislative website, you kick that up, and you can pull a number if you know the number, or you can do a search by issue. And then you can go and pull that up and look, and it'll tell you the history of the bill, the subcommittee, who was on it, what the votes were, if it passed committee, and where it's at. So that's also another thing. But if you don't know the number, it's harder to find. Yeah, and it's good. It's good that you're bringing this stuff up because most people don't know how to do that, but it's really kind of easy. So.
And just to mention, I mean, the legislature mandated financial literacy course as part of graduation requirement. And we're a medium-sized school at Waverly Shell Rock, and it still put a burden on us. We have to find the staff and the room in order to do that. I imagine it's much more of a burden on smaller schools to be able to do that. So when you mandate some of these classes, that becomes a huge burden on the schools. Along that same line is the reading bill, and that's another mandate. Which one I'm talking.
sorry.
The reading bill, the science and reading bill.
I don't remember that one off the top of my head.
Well, no, that'd be one that I don't know.
Get that info beforehand, that we could research.
Do you know who's science? But I'm dyslexic. That's one of the biggest problems I had in school was reading problems. They didn't identify back there. I moved from Minnesota and did the 5th grade here at Cedar Falls Schools. I was supposed to be in the 5th grade and my reading level was maybe 2nd to 3rd grade. And so my parents had to pay for me to go to a tutor, an educator from UNI. And so reading is the key to everything. When I read something, even today, I might have to read the same paragraph 3 times before it really I get to what I understand, because my mind, when I read it, it just drifts off of it. And so reading's key to ever understanding and everything, but whose curriculum? That's the question.
Could be a no bid.
Yeah.
That's the science.
Can I keep firing away here? No.
Is there anybody else that would like, I'm gonna open it up. Is there anybody else that would like to, don't be afraid. Most of us have been educators, we're mostly friendly, so.
Truancy, I believe there's a bill on truancy that would penalize schools on a per diem basis for every time a student is absent.
I'm getting there. I just had it.
Bill numbers.
Yeah, I need bill numbers, you're right.
Tardy? Would they get you for being tardy?
Maybe 50 cents.
I was tardy 30 times Cedar Falls High one year and.
If that's the case, I think they ought to give us time and a half for all the hours that we spend after school. Cities are trying to make things up. But I believe there is a bill out.
It's House File 2547.
Thank you, Rick.
547.
Yeah.
So I would stand against that. there are days when I gotta be frank and admit there's sometimes when a student doesn't show up for a particular class, I'm kind of grateful. But to be honest, we work really hard to get every student there. And if we notice a student is been absent for a particular string of days, somebody's on the phone, somebody's trying to contact that parent and make sure that that student is there. So to go back and try to take money back from a school who's already made out of budget just does not make sense at all.
I used to fake illnesses because I knew I didn't know the subject matter. I was gonna get a test. And I'd take the thermometer and put it under hot water and go tell, look, Mom, it's 104. And she's going, you're not that sick, Billy.
Here's just on- Yeah, that bill was just introduced on the 15th, so it didn't make it through funnel. It could be one that gets attached somewhere, but it's dead right now.
All right, hallelujah, thank you, I think it's a good idea. I'll hit one more.
One more.
Okay, licensure, thank you, you already touched on it. We do need our student teachers to be, we need our student teachers.
Yeah, that one passed.
That one passed.
Yeah, that one is, we made it through the funnel, lowering teacher qualifications.
And that one also talks about lowering student teaching time to 4 weeks, right? Yeah. Okay.
That made it through.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. I do want to put out a public apology right now for my first couple of years of teaching. I'm a much better teacher than I was then, but that time in the classroom really made a huge difference in how effective a person can be. And if we don't have that, that was part of one of the licensure changes or one of the bill proposals was to reduce the amount of exposure in the classroom that a student teacher would get. I think the idea was to help out those associates who are working on a track to become a licensed teacher who already had some of that experience. The bill was written in such a vague way that it has done implemented. So
Yeah, that's House File 255.
Yep. That one's dead.
all right, thank you, and I appreciate you putting up with.
No, it's.
Thanks, Jed.
I'll do my homework.
Oh, I thought you,
It's alive.
oh, sorry, 255's alive. The other one was,
Yeah.
sorry.
So the education, union busting made it through. Arm your teacher made it through. Lower qualifications of our teaching system made it through. Take money from your public schools and give it to charter schools, made it through. Underfund K through 12 schools, made it through.
The AEA mental health piece too, special ed.
Yeah.
Made it through. That's
Two
SSB 3073 and then House Study Bill 713.
House File 2542.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you putting up.
A lot of questions.
Welcome.
That one did.
Okay.
My name is Ken Tovar, I'm a teacher, and just a comment. Question not to build the ADA bill, I'm trying to put up the good fight, because where I teach, the 2 ADA employees that we have there, they're great, I love them, just like I love everyone I served with in the Army, I want to keep them there. So I'm just trying to figure out who wrote that bill.
The governor.
Okay, so that helps with send more people.
And then there was some changes to it.
Yeah,
The House, the Senate's pretty well stayed with the governor's approach. Then the House, Senate Republicans and the House Republicans, I should clarify that. That would be,
and one of the most cowardly things in that bill that the governor put out was that my pay raise is tied to that bill. And I told the governor she can keep my pay raise if this bill passed, which I don't want to know that. I want, trying to put a good fight for them. And, but now I know, I never knew who wrote the bill.
the governor. Betsy DeVos and her Department of Ed, the head of the Department of Ed at Iowa.
I got said he keeps on this.
And then they brought in I think it was a Virginia lobby group.
Guidepost.
Like she did with the private school piece. It was all done out of state. They were paid to come in. And that's what they did when they drafted that.
About the teacher army.
About the what?
Army of the teachers.
Yeah, that was in the House.
And
And that bill passed the public safety. And that bill, let me see here,
Do you remember which one?
armed teachers in public and private school, House Study Bill 675. That made it through committee. It hasn't gotten to the floor for debate, so that's a good voice to make in opposition to it.
Because I kind of skimmed through it, but one thing that scared me about that is one, the training sucks. There is no, when I was in the army, it was about 2 weeks before we actually fired the rifle. Here, it's like, oh yeah, here's a pistol, here you go. The training sucks.
Right. Well, we asked them that question. And they said that there would be training available, but the biggest piece to that from the schools is the insurance piece. And I talked to an individual that told me that, so say for instance, I'm in the classroom and I have a gun, somebody comes in and causes harm to the classroom, and I fire that gun at that individual, and say I miss that individual and I shoot a child. That was the big concern that I heard, and we brought that up, that there's still, the gun groups down there we had a bill dealing with the ghost gun, and Jerome was on that. I assigned him to it, and they had a meeting. Nothing's being done. And a ghost gun, all you got to do is you can go online, you can buy the parts and assemble the gun without any identification of the gun, because most guns have a serial number on them. So that's traceable. The NRA and the Iowa gun owners play a vital role in policy, and they're just not willing to address the gun violence.
Representative Kressick, I'd like to speak to that a little bit because I was on that subcommittee for that. That bill was actually written a year ago by a gentleman by the name of Art State. I sit right next to him. Representative Kressick asked me if I was interested in sitting on the subcommittee for it, and I told him, yeah, sure, because that's an important bill. Well, that waited 2 weeks for the subcommittee. When I got into the subcommittee, the chair was Phil Thompson, and then there was a Representative Meggers, who was a law enforcement person. When I got to the subcommittee, Phil Thompson was there, myself, and Representative Meggers just happened to be assigned to another committee as chair. Double booked is what they called it. So we went through the process. We listened to the lobbyists, the gun lobbyists. We listened to individuals that wanted this bill to move forward. When it came time to decide whether that bill was going to move forward or not, Representative Thompson said he was not going to move it forward. The gun lobbyists didn't want it moved forward. So get out of the subcommittee, and one of our staffers came to me and said, this is a one-to-one tie. You need to talk with Representative Meggers to find out what his position is on it. So I did exactly that. I walked up to him. He was right outside of the subcommittee meeting, and I asked him, what is your position on this? And his reply to me was, we were never going to move that forward anyway. So it was a political ploy in my mind, once again, my opinion, that what was happening was this was a move to get the gun lobbyists stirred up and then show them that we support you. But that's the way that went down.
Just one more thing about firing a weapon. You got a 9mm round and you're an educator and you fire into somebody. If you watch what the bullets do with ballistic gel, you can go right through the person and kill somebody behind him. So not only do you got to watch you got to do your target. I mean, missing somebody and hitting, but you could hit what you're aiming at, and somebody behind it could be killed. So I'm a veteran. I got weapons. I don't hunt, but I do target practice, so I know.
All right.
A lot of us veterans, there's a few of us that just go I teach. I talked to a few of them. We hung up our uniform, which meant our weapons were turned in. We didn't become teachers so we could carry a weapon again. Right. Say they're done.
Everybody in here, when I got up and spoke in the beginning, how many in this room would want to have a gun? And there was nobody, and there are teachers in here, so, yep.
My name's Jamie. I'm a teacher in Waterloo,
There you go.
7 and 8 year olds.
Yeah,
And I know that the message that I'm going to share today is preaching to the choir. But I just want you to see a face, know a story, because I'm not the only teacher that has gone through these things also. In 2012, shortly after Sandy Hook, my district implemented ALICE training, which was an active shooter simulation involving our local police, in which an officer portrays an armed intruder and guides teachers through role-playing scenarios while firing blank rounds of ammunition throughout the building. I will never forget the still vivid memories that I have of that day and the adrenaline coursing through my veins and the fear I felt as I attempted to create a makeshift barricade of filing cabinets and tables. Before I could fully secure my classroom, the door swung open. The table toppled out onto the officer, and I hit the floor behind the filing cabinet as shots rang out over my head. The trauma of this experience, a pre-planned training exercise, still lingers over a decade later. It is a burden that I carry every single day, unsure of the possibility that I might have to endure the next real tragedy in order to protect my own life and the life of my 7 and 8 year old students. However, I don't believe that arming me would do anything to make my 7 and 8 year old students feel safer in my future.
thank you.
Thank you so much. My name's Julie Johnson, and I worked at the University of Northern Iowa for 26 years, most of it in the College of Ed. While I was there, I went through the ALICE training twice. The thing that stayed with me was when police come in, if they see you with a handgun or with a weapon, with any kind of weapon in your hand, they are going to shoot you. They're not going to ask questions first. They will shoot and ask questions later. So if a teacher is holding a handgun, that teacher is going to be shot by the police force.
Good
Tell
point.
your colleagues that.
Good point. I agree.
The other thing that I wanted to stress was the insurance part for schools. One thing that we have learned in the hazardous CO2 pipeline fight is none of us landowners can get liability insurance if something goes wrong with those, if something would go wrong with those pipelines. If something did go wrong, the way it's written is we landowners would have to prove that it wasn't our fault, first of all. But none of our insurance companies will give us liability insurance. Even if we proved that it was not our fault and it was the pipeline company's fault, we have been told what will happen is the pipeline company's insurance will then sue us. And that actually happened in Nebraska. So liability insurance, it's not going to happen. There's not going to be insurance for anybody in the schools to protect themselves.
Thank you very much. And I just want to point out, I'll let you go first.
I just want to say goodbye to everybody. I gotta go. I have a 7-month-old baby I have to babysit. And so my 2-year-old grandson can go to the rodeo. Thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate it so much. It was just me trying to cram everything into one day today. But please reach out with anything. Know that we'll continue that fight. Know that we are down there for you guys. If you need help navigating down there, or you can need help getting in front of someone, reach out because we can kind of do that little soft pass for you down there. So please let me know if you're coming down and we can kind of help you navigate through that. So thank you and good night.
Thank you. Julie, I just wanted to reiterate your point about when police officers Yeah, if there's more questions, come up, but like, that point, so, yeah. Our police, I talked to them, they're walkover bodies. That's what they said. Any further questions? All right, well,
Vote to adjourn.
not yet. All right, we'll go to closing comments then.
Start over here.
I know. I know. I'm just making sure he was listening. You go.
I'm just kidding.
No, you want to go? Now you have,
Fine.
you've got 5 minutes.
Nope, go ahead.
Nope, too late.
Oh,
No, serious. Yeah, yeah,
I'm just kidding you.
I know.
Well, thank you, everybody. We've had a lot of discussions about a lot of the negative issues that are taking place down there. And, the concept that they've approached in this legislative session and in the past, they are all focused on politics, period. And they're not focused on the people. And just the concept of the AEAs, the significant harm that's going to do. I've talked to several teachers that, rely on the AEAs. They're a very helpful resource. And so I'm just really hopeful that your talk, your emails, and one of the things that I've seen with some of the AEA emails is that it's a draft they don't even put your name on it. They just have the same email. And that's not really influential. You need to craft your own email and just be nice and cordial to the individual. But typically those get the responses back. And so I'm just wishing that would be the direction. So we'll be back down next week. And we've been there 6 weeks in the Iowa House, and we have not had one floor debate. We've had some resolutions, and that's about it. And they're not votes, they're just or that kind of thing. So, and in my years down there, I've never seen it gone this long. And supplemental state aid should have been addressed 30 days after we gavelled in, and it hasn't been. And so there's a lot of real barriers. I got to tell you one other area that I've worked on for a while is mental health. And there's, 2 critical areas that we're really lacking here in Iowa. It's critical care access. You talk to Sheriff Thompson, I've talked to him a few times, the struggles they have. And then we got Tom over here, Tom Ekus, who's with the Blackhawk County Grundy Mental Health, knows a lot more about this issue. And then the other one is early intervention in our K-12. Suicide rates are increasing. And it's a tragedy to a family member to lose somebody because they took their life, because they're not getting the necessary resources to have a better life. So, I'm just hopeful. And last year, the mental health funding from the majority party was 1.25%. 1.25%. And we had this huge ending balance that we could have done to address that. So I hear they're working on a few things, but we'll have to see how that all unfolds. But it's a big issue. So thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bob, for talking about the mental health. We had some groups down there, educators that were really working to try to work with students. And I sat on the Iowa Innovation Council, and there was a gentleman on there who, in their Spencer group, they've got a program to work with students in their mental health issues. And when you look at what's going on with the internet today and the bullying and the things and the stress, and it's through the roof. And I don't know, maybe Tom knows the right answer for what the percentage was, but I think they were telling me like 1 in 4 students has some real stress, and it might be higher than that. And so they were asking for a little bit of money to help work with these students. You know, when I was in junior high, we didn't have internet. And what they did have was called blast books. And they'd write your name on the top of it and they would pass it around. This was just the students pass it around and write things about individuals. And when it saw me, you know, I read that and there were some very hurtful things because I wasn't very successful in the English and the kind of things. And for some reason, all the kids that were labeled dummies were in the same group. And then you got to be kind of like outcasts, you know. It wasn't until high school when I started getting science classes and I could get straight A's and those kind of things. And it was tough. And I was to the point where my father didn't understand it. And I've told this enough times, so I think I can get through without crying. Maybe I can. But he called me a damn dummy and I was no son of his. And he didn't understand what was wrong with me. And I want to tell you, if we would have had a weapon in our house, I wouldn't be here today. That's the importance of working with these kids. And when you get groups that come up to the Capitol and talk to you about the problems our state has and how a little bit of money can go a long way. The food program, the EBT cards, they set a system up of failure. So somebody, you had to recertify and do all this paperwork. And if you made a mistake, you got kicked off. And I have a friend in Des Moines who has a friend that she filled her stuff out and something happened and it got delayed. She had to go back and fill it out again. She lost her card. Her husband was a jerk, left her, she's got 2 kids. She works full time and it was over a month without him. And when you got 2 kids and you're working full time, you know, plus the babysitting and all that, she called them up. What's the deal? And they're going, well, we're behind. And, you know, and our public employees are working their buns off. They created this administrative mess purposely to kick people off because they think that there's deadbeats out there. Well, yeah, there are a few. But you're gonna, you know, it's the baby with the bathwater. It's worse than that. So that woman screamed at the public employee, I need to feed my kids now. You know, she said, well, you're gonna get it. Well, what's that do? So we ended up, she went to the food bank, but you can't go every day. You can only get so much. So I ended up paying for her. We bought a big care package and few $100s worth of stuff. And I give money to the food bank. So a Republican senator came over and talked to me about stuff. I enjoy talking to you. We're not talking politics and, you know, we got different views. And I go, yeah, we do. You know, I said, answer me this. You go to this Bible study all the time and you got a Bible on your desk. How can you not fund these programs? He said, well, we want the churches to do it. I said, well, are they doing it? And I told him the story, you know, and I said, well, what are you giving to the charity? I said, well, I give a couple $300 every year to Cedar Valley Food Bank just because of my own experience. And we didn't have enough to eat when we were younger. And my mom and I remember this, I was 4 years old. We had to steal food. She would go and grab food, and in the wintertime, I put it in my pockets. And I remember looking up at that checkout person in fear that we would be caught. And I was 4 years old. They don't understand what families go through. God, it's so frustrating. And guess what? The reason that we didn't do the summer program, It's not sustainable. And you're sitting on $1.8 billion. And all of that came from the education program, basically. I'm going to get too worked up. Thank you.
No. Representative Amos.
First off, let me start by thanking the League of Women Vote,
A little closer,
the
sir.
League of Women Voters and all of the different sponsors of this forum, because it is important from a standpoint of educating you all and the public as far as what we are doing down there. You know, this is an education thing, and I was thinking about that. You know, today I met with Todd Holcomb and Pam Miller for Hawkeye Community College. And believe it or not, one of the things that we talked about was a program called the Last Dollar Scholar program that they have in place. President Holcomb told me that they had a certain number of programs out there for students to be able to help them get to where they need to be at from a standpoint of classes. And the governor is reducing, I forget the exact number, but she is reducing a lot of those programs to the point to where President Holcomb, if he doesn't get the funding, is going to have to stop those programs. And that's going to harm students from a standpoint of, I believe there was some nursing things, different programs that didn't have many students in them. But without those dollars coming in, he said those programs are going to have to go away from an administrative standpoint. Understandably so. You don't have the dollars, you can't do the things that you need to do. So it's not just the public, private, and those schools, it's also affecting the community colleges. UNI, Iowa State, Iowa, all of these places where we are educating our future generation is going away simply because the leadership, the people in power don't want to provide the dollars necessary to help. Something's got to change, everyone. And like Mr. Foy said, November 5th, that's the time where we are going to have the opportunity to turn things around. Make no bones about it, that's the reality. So if we want change, we may have to start looking at putting different people in place to get that change. That's all I need to say.
Thank you all again. It's great to be with you. I'm glad that Representative Amos brought up higher ed because we talked kind of all night about K-12, understandably, because of the big issue of the and so forth. But higher ed is an important part of our educational spectrum as well. Here in the Cedar Valley, obviously, we've got Hawkeye Community College, UNI is in my district. I'm very concerned about UNI funding. We have seen, inadequate support for UNI in recent years as well. And the shift last year was to, instead of allocating just a certain amount of general fund dollars to the university to use in ways that they need to utilize them to keep things going. The legislature has inserted itself into the budgeting process and pick and choose certain programs to fund that are supposedly closely related to workforce shortages or issues. And so take care of we need to just trust our administrators. We need to trust the oversight that the Regents has, that they know what they're doing with those dollars, and we need to allocate them to the university to do as they see fit with. So that's my position. It's something I'll be, vigilant about, really concerned about UNI. So just wanted to make sure we put that out there as well. And to that point, I just wanted to announce that next Friday at 11 a.m., I'm holding a forum for students, or if there are other folks that are interested in coming, on the UNI campus in Mount Union, the State College Room in Mount Union from 11 to 12 a.m. to simply listen to students about their ideas for what the state should be doing better to try to keep young people in this state. I'm very interested in hearing from them. So If you know of people that, you know, we're trying to get the word out, we got flyers, we've got, students in various student organizations trying to get folks there. We're gonna have the Northern Iowan, student newspaper there to do some coverage on it as well. Hopefully we can circulate that afterwards, with other outlets. But if you know of people that you think should be there and should share their ideas with me, with us, please share that next Friday, 11 a.m. at State College Room in Mocker Union. We'll be having that listening post. So, again, thank you all. Reach out if we can do anything to be helpful at any time.
Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you to our legislators who made the conscious choice to be here as well, and the 23 organizations that help support the Cedar Valley Legislative Public Forum. The next public forum will be March 8th, and the topic will be on mental health. Everybody have a great evening.